So humble inquiry is about asking questions in a way, open-ended questions, curious questions, genuinely trying to draw another person out in order to arrive at a greater sort of collective understanding of what's going on. And then we also
it sounds like asking without judgment, inquiry instead of interrogation.
absolutely. And in fact, one of the things that we go through in the book is we compare humble inquiry to other kinds of inquiry. And those other kinds of inquiry being diagnostic inquiry or confrontive inquiry or even process inquiry, where you're not as much focused on the content of what you're discussing, but you're focused on, are we being effective communicating with each other for regardless of what we're talking about? So, but the attitude about humble inquiry is also that you're embracing the idea that you benefit by having a closer, more open, and more trusting relationship with that person that you're inquiring of or inquiring with. You're sort of saying, I'm going to move beyond a transactional relationship with this person and try to reach a kind of a deeper substrate of openness and trust, because the next time we have something to talk about, when you're inquiring of me or I'm inquiring of you, will have established a deeper level of openness and trust with which to communicate fully. And humble inquiry, in our view, is one of those ways of deepening that relationship, giving yourselves a richer substrate with which to really share information. A lot of times a question can be answered with a yes/no answer. Well, how helpful is that? This is not a deposition. This is not an interrogation. This is what's going on. How can we help each other? And so asking open-ended questions, asking questions that draw people closer together is all what the humble inquiry attitude is all about.
So where did you first start using it? Where did your dad first start using it? Like when he first told you about it, what examples did he give?
Well, let me start with a couple of the backstories just to sort of set some context. One of the things that triggered my father to write this book initially was he had moved out to California, and this story's it's in the book, but I'll tell it to you again, is that he was at the senior living place that he was living. He was in an area in the back that's with a bunch of trees, and he was noticing some mushrooms. And another senior in the facility pointed to the mushrooms and said, those are poisonous and they'll kill you. And it was a tell. The fact of the matter is that my father had a lot of experience with mushrooms. He had grown up picking mushrooms and eating mushrooms, knew what was poisonous, knew what was dangerous, knew what wasn't poisonous, knew what was good eating, what was not as good eating, and he knows mushroom. And this woman just sort of dove in with a tell that he just sort of thought, that turns me off. She didn't have any curiosity about what I knew. She just went in and maybe she felt compelled to warn me that I not, pick and eat these mushrooms. But as the way my father recounted it, as he said, it turned him cold. And so instead, the corollary would be somebody might ask with a little bit more curiosity, what are you looking at? And then Ed would respond, well, I'm curious what mushrooms these are, and test each other a little bit to see what each other knows. Be a little bit curious about what the other person knows, rather than just sort of leading with that tell of what you know. And the thing that really struck me about this is that we do live in this era of, it's expertise that's now becoming AI. Unfortunately, I think we're going to have to grapple with this issue even more as we grapple with AI. But the point being that, and particularly for me, having spent most of my career in Silicon Valley, the idea that your value is so much associated with what you know and what you can tell other people about what you know. And the problem is that those kinds of interactions often end up in dead end or log jams or impasses.